It's already the summer split, and welcome back everyone to the LEC predictions. We've got 15 games on the docket for the first of two super weeks in the European League. As such, it's only fair we jump straight into the action. Starting off with the Mad Lads, the Mad Lions, taking on the Bees in Vitality. Now, this matchup has received some changes to the lineups, as Vitality have dropped out Self-Made and the Mad Lads have picked up Niski and I believe it's Haru on the Vitality roster. These two rosters obviously making some big changes. Niski, I would say, is an upgrade on their mid lane role, considering this guy has been to the World Championships, has tons of experience, and has only just been, well, he missed the spring split, plain and simple. As for Vitality, Haru, big Korean name, very solid player. I believe he's won a World Championship. I forget though. Don't quote me on that. Now, who do I think's winning this matchup? Believe it or not, I've gone with Vitality. I think we're going to see bit of a big clash in the bot lane. Kazi and Unforgiven, I think, are on the same sort of level. However, I feel jungle is going to play a mega factor into that matchup, and I feel Self-Made was more of a greedier jungle. Haru's probably going to look to play the map more, and that's where I think Vitality are going to generate a lead and actually pick up a week 1 win for themselves. Game 2 sees SK and the BDS squad take to the Rift in a matchup that really sees very little change, as SK have remained the same with their roster. As for BDS, we see in the top and in the support role changes, as Adam has been replaced by Aggressivo and also Limit being replaced by Dote. Now, honestly, Limit going out of this squad is a big loss in my opinion, whereas I think the Aggressivo switch out with Adam is actually quite worth it. Aggressivo has probably been one of the better top laners in the ERLs for quite some time, and I personally rate him quite highly. As for Dote, I'm not too sure of his skill and caliber as a player, so he's a bit of a yikes in my opinion if we are to predict this BDS squad. However, it's a young rookie roster and they're regrowing, and personally I think SK will win this. But don't be too shocked if the BDS squad has a lot of firepower and is looking to go aggressive, as Grabs will have probably coached them into having no fear. Regardless, still an SK win in my opinion. And yeah, let's move into our next matchup. Game 3 sees Misfits and XL take to the Rift. What could be considered a playoff matchup I wish we actually covered, as honestly these two teams haven't made too big of a change to their roster. Only Misfits have done, in a sense that they have switched out Hirat, who was fairly inconsistent in the Misfits lineup, for a new top laner who is not irrelevant, but that is his user. Now, personally, when you do this sort of change, the first few games will probably be a bit rocky, and if I am to believe that it's going to be game 1, game 3 and game 5 as stage games in the LEC for this split, he is probably starting off with a stage game in the opening week, which realistically speaking probably will be quite a yikers matchup, I would say, for him. Now, this is where you get to see the nerves of a player, and personally, if we are to rate this Misfits squad, you're going to have to look at the mid lane. Nuke Duck versus VTO is a good matchup. But honestly, both of them have had a stellar 2022 so far, and it's up to them to see their squads carry with their support in Mickey X and also in Mercer. And if obviously these two can perform, then more than likely we're gonna see a hell of a stellar matchup. However, my prediction for this matchup is an XL win. I just feel experience tops new skill, so whether or not that's gonna affect it, we're yet to see, but my prediction is an XL win. Astralis versus G2 as our second to last opening day matchup. As we see two teams coming into this, G2, a fairly decent MSI run, getting to the semi-finals, but only to be inevitably swept by T1, taking on the rebuilt Astralis, where we see Vizicachi returning to the LEC and Xerxes as well joining him. Also a new supporting Jonghoon, whom comes from Korea. Now, personally, I feel that Astralis have kind of lost their flair in this offseason, losing arguably one of their better named players in Zanzara. He was kind of the lifeblood of the squad that gave them some kind of, what's the word we're looking for? Hope, like power, and like inspiration to perform. Now here in summer, I also feel they've lost their star top laner. White Knight was always a top performer for this squad, and Vizicachi's got some pretty big shoes to fill. Now, whether or not he won't fill them, it's, yeah, I do believe he will. He's obviously a very strong player. Now, as for G2, they are a very strong squad, and I still think they will more than likely perform very well and do extremely good. Let's be honest, they're a solid squad. Now, I think this is a G2 win. Astralis have a lot to grow and do to build into a strong squad, but right now they're not going to be making playoffs for, is it a third or fourth split in a row? You know, I feel really sorry for Rogue. They dominate the regular split every year, and Riot have had enough of it. They've given them probably the toughest week 1 super week out there possible. All game 5s on all 3 days, and they have today Fnatic, the runners-up. No, they weren't the runners-up. The third place squad in the LEC last year, who lost out to Rogue. Now, Rogue made no changes. Unsurprising. Fnatic, guess what they did? Made no changes. So, what does this say? We're getting a rematch, baby, from the playoffs. In fact, I think it's one of the very few matches you can actually have a rematch of here in the summer split. Now, personally, I think that the match is going to Rogue, and you'll probably notice a trend throughout this weekend, but you have to realize this. Rogue probably won't win one of the 2 matches out of their day 1 and 2 games. That's just logical. They're both, their first 2 days are top team matchups, and the third day just has a lot of class to it. But as I say, my prediction here is a Rogue win. Will it be a Rogue win in their next matchup? Who knows? Day 2 kicked off with BDS Astralis. The 2 bottom teams of the regular split last year face-off week 1. This, by all means, could be a heck of a clash that determines playoff seeding already. And personally, I've gone with a BDS win. We discussed the two rosters in some vocabulary in the previous snippets of day 1. Now, day 2, we get to discuss them one by one. BDS, in my opinion, made, I would say honestly, better subs. Adon was underperforming in the spring split and realistically has a very limited champion pool. Okay, he has a big champion pool because he plays Darius and Olaf and all that. But when it comes to meta picks that are strong, he has a very weak pool. That's why I feel Aggressivo will fill the rift very nicely for BDS. As for the other switches, Vizichachi, that's kind of a side grade to me. Xerxes could be considered an upgrade, but you lose that sort of mental when you bring in Xerxes. You lose the motivator, and Astralis need the motivator, and someone has to step into that role. And I don't know of them players who would realistically fit that role very well. As for BDS, they've got personality for days. Sure, you've lost out on the French bros, but you've got star power there. You've got the Calming Corp performers, the jungle and bot lane. They've got a split of LEC experience now. Hopefully, there's a lot more confidence and power coming out from this squad to perform in the top regional league, which is kind of why I think that their youngness and their power will come out here and beat some of the oldest names in League of Legends today. SK versus Mad is the second matchup. It feels like SK have a very juicy week 1. They get very close matchups the first 2 days, and then a very tough matchup on day 3. But this matchup, I personally think they're going to lose against the Mad lads. Mad have made a big change in the mid lane. And Certus, that's my thoughts on him as a player. I'm going to be honest, Mad probably will outclass them. Niski, hands above a better player. Top side map, I think it's a very even matchup. Jungle, Gilius versus Elyoya favors Elyoya. Bot lane though, Unforgiven and Kaiser versus Jesus and Treats. That's probably quite an even matchup as well on paper. So realistically, it's only the jungle and mid, in my opinion, that's gonna have some kind of disparity between the two teams. And yeah, it's quite a hard thing to say that Gilius is worse than Elyoya, but Elyoya stepped up in spring to get these rookies some success on the LEC stage, but it wasn't enough. And personally, they're gonna have a harder time in summer, or an easier time, I would say, with Niski kind of coming in as a captain and going up against SK. That's probably gonna be better for them. It's a good warm-up after what could be considered a very hard matchup day 1. Well, Misfits are having a very jolly time in their opening games this week. They have the 2 playoff teams that finished just below them in the regular season, in obviously XL day 1 and Vitality day 2. This is very close for them, as this gets sort of some idea of where they fall in the standings. Personally, I think Vitality made a big swap. Obviously, X7, very solid during the spring split, which Haru played on, who, by the way, is a former world champion with Samsung Galaxy. But yeah, Vitality, I think, have won the off-season, picking him up. And God, they look like a solid super team. But super teams don't tend to do well. We just have to look at G2 with Reckless for that statement. Now, Misfits, I don't think will do good. And spoiler alert, it's another Vitality prediction for me. I think I'm going to get jinxed after what happened in spring, and Vitality will probably lose all 3 games after I predict them to win. Do I predict them to win? Maybe in the final day. But yeah, I've gone with 2 out of 2 wins for Vitality. I just think Perks plays metas to a T. And this meta, he's probably going to get some fun champions like LeBlanc and Ari and just pop some people. This matchup used to be the battle of the British orgs until Fnatic joined up with Team Questo to become Fnatic Questo. And you know, I'm kind of sad that I can't call it that anymore, because they take on XL and it's Wonder versus Mickey X yet again. Both rosters surprisingly made no changes during the off-season. Who knew that teams could retain players? But yeah, it's going to be a good matchup because of the name power behind it. Wonder versus Mickey, that's a thing you have to say. Hylissang versus Mickey is an even bigger matchup. But then you look at the other laners. Upset versus Patrick. 2 former All-Pro bot laners. Mid, Nuke Duck versus Humanoid. Will it be the year of the duck, or will Humanoid reclaim his crown? As for the other side, Razork versus Marcoon. The Impact starter that joined mid-split versus the former rookie of the split. And then top lane, Wonder versus Finn. Let's be honest, this is a matchup we've seen before, and Finn's got the better of it during playoffs. But let's be honest, my prediction here, fairly obvious, it's Fnatic win. I just think Fnatic will somehow crush bot like they usually do. Hilly is going to become unhinged. He wants a world championship. He wants the LEC title to come to Fnatic, his home. And yeah, I've gone with a Fnatic win for their second matchup. Match of the week time as G2 take on Rogue. It is the rematch of the spring split finals, and it's always good to look at these rematches week 1, as you get to understand the progress between the off-season, to showcase the changes in the picks that have been prevalent during the playoffs and then into the international tourney, versus the picks that are performing now in summer. As we look at the 2 teams, none of them have made changes. And that is a huge thing to say, as you could have realistically seen some of Rogue's squad being taken apart to go other places. Now, as for the result, believe it or not, I've gone with a Rogue win. Yeah, I'm doubling down on the Rogue win train. Basically, if I don't get a Rogue win day 1 or 2, I am screwed when it comes to predictions for that squad. Now, personally, why have I gone with a Rogue win? I think draft diff will come into effect here. Rogue are a very well drilled squad, and on patch 12.11, there's a lot of picks that work well in a more drilled, like, textbook squad than there was during the MSI patch. MSI and previous patches were very Umbral Glaive powered. You had the Wukongs and the Graves basically dominating the jungle, and with the Umbral Glaive receiving some pretty hefty nerfs, but lethality receiving a bit more of a buff, I think we're going to see less of these solid, clear stop ward champions, and more of these, we can farm up, play a bit more routine, go for a gank at X time. Granted, it's Malrang, he'll probably find a way to play something stupid. Regardless though, I think that Rogue will perform better on this patch than G2. G2 suffered pretty heavy loss in the semi-finals and haven't had as much time on the patch as these other teams, so maybe we'll see a Rogue win. Let's kick off our final day. Misfits Astralis. I want to just quickly go through it. We've kind of discussed these two squads at a heavy length, but I've gone with an Astralis win here. That's why I want to speed through the two rosters. Astralis, I think, will get an upset win this for opening week. Misfits, they've had a tough week. You'd expect them to win this one and possibly lose the other two in very close fashion. But yeah, this one I think is going to be the shocker that puts Misfits down in the opening week. Don't get me wrong, it could be quite the opposite and they sit atop of the table. It's that sort of matchup that they're in. But statistically speaking, Misfits tend to do very well early on in the split and then falter late game. So yeah, I realistically should have gone for a Misfits win in at least one of these days, but I've not. So that's going to be a shock once they win all three. So our next matchup is Vitality and BDS. Gonna be honest, I think I can sum this up in a very quick sentence. Experience. One team has tons of it, the other has very little stage experience and LEC experience, which is why I've gone with the Vitality win. Third game of the last day is El Clasico. SK versus Fnatic. The big boy matchup that used to be super duper hype now is kind of mediocre at best because Fnatic stomp them all, which is kind of why I've gone with them winning this one. You expect it to be close? It's gonna be a Fnatic blowout, baby. The second to last matchup of this weekend is G2 versus XL. Now, XL seem to do very well against G2, especially when they get Patrick on a champion named Aphelios with Death's Dance and me doing an entire teamfight breakdown on it. Now, personally, this one I think will be a G2 win, although don't expect Mickey Egg to be holding back any punches. He's faced Wonder in the previous day, and then he's got to face his former squad. You know, that's a story in its own right, but personally, it's still G2 with the championship, baby, and they're looking to just pick up some easy wins week one. Even though they're probably going to have a torrid time against Rogue, this should be a bit more of a competitive / easier win for them. The last matchup sees Mad and Rogue on the Rift. I'm just gonna say Rogue win right now. And yeah, I feel Mad haven't really... Okay, so their roster, let's discuss it. They've not really made any big changes other than getting in Niski. I've not rated their bot lane this spring split. Granted, Unforgiven is not at the caliber of a player yet for LEC. he's working towards it, and we did see improvement during the spring split. But this Mad Lions roster kind of fell apart during spring. It seemed like they were burnt out. A lot of burnout. And I think the off-season has done them a little bit of good. Niski, he's got a lot of energy. You could tell if you've looked on his social media, he really wants to play. And this is going to be huge for him to show why you don't bench one of the greatest Western players that's existed in this game. But Rogue, they're better, hands down on paper, than Mad. I think Odo's gonna top diff Armor, and it's sad to say that. Armor as a player, I think, hasn't lived up to his 2020 spring split success. He was very solid then. Now, not so much. So, basically, Rogue have to show why they're a solid squad here. And Mad just need to step it up. That's my honest thoughts on the final matchup of week number 1. 15 games done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else watching. So with that, it's time to bid you all adieu. Thank you once again to Akita-san on Twitter and Instagram for the lovely artwork. I say it every time I do these videos because she deserves the praise. If you've also enjoyed this video, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and if you want to. I'll see you guys for the team fight breakdown between Rogue and G2. Peace out.